Welcome to 5 Minute Salute. I'm your host, Chris Budihas. Today's segment is sponsored by the Military Affairs and Veterans Department of the city of Jacksonville. Harrison Conyers and the team squaring away our veterans with the military benefits they earned through their military service. Talking about veterans, I got Rick Neal with Goodwill of Southern Nevada. Rick, how you been?
Doing great, Chris. Glad to be here. How you been?
I've been wonderful, man. I appreciate, having veterans in our community willing to come tell their story because, when we first linked up, you're an inspiration. I mean, you've done a lot of great things in your career, not only in uniform, but also in your post-military journey. So for our audience, can you give them like the elevator pitch? Like, what did you do in the military?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the first 25 years of my professional career in the Air Force as a then security policeman, converted to security forces in 1996. So I was a security force member the whole time, commanded at every level, and ended my career in group command out at Creech Air Force Base.
That's wonderful, man. Congratulations. And for your post-military journey, just a highlight because it's funny, folks will leave the military like you did, and they'll gravitate to the big five, the Raytheons and General Dynamics and others, which is fine, right? But you chose a different path. What was that path? What was that path that got you to Goodwill?
Well, it started uniquely. As you get in your career, you never know who you're going to meet, and when you're sitting at a dinner, when you're speaking to someone, you never know where they might show back up. And when I decided to retire, my first job was actually with the Clark County School District. And for everybody that knows me, I was like, no, I wasn't a teacher. I was asked to come and be the chief of staff for the superintendent. And for those who don't know, the Clark County School District is the 5th largest school district in the nation. Yeah. So, over 41,000 employees and over 300,000 students. That was a pretty big job. And moving into that, it really prepared me for where I ended up. That job actually happened because I was sitting next to a headhunter who was looking 2 years later. He was looking for someone to be that chief of staff, and I just got the call in the middle of the night. And so that's a little bit of who you know and making those connections.
Yeah.
As I moved through as the chief of staff, one of my first pieces of advice was your organization this large, a $2.4 billion operating budget, but no chief operating officer. So the business functions were all over the place. So right. I gave the recommendation for a chief operating officer, and then I wasn't smart enough to not take the job when I was actually offered it. So I went from chief of staff to chief operating officer. And then after 2 years of working as a chief operating officer, I decided it was time to get out there and see what else was available. And working in the nonprofit world never really occurred to me.
Yeah.
Talking to some of my colleagues and some friends that I had made while I was the COO for CCSD. Really kind of put me to throwing my hat in the ring for Goodwill of Southern Nevada because, we talked about it a little bit before we came on camera. Yeah. I was a military dependent as well as a military member. So I spent all of my life up until this point traveling. I was somewhat nomadic. And what I realized was I didn't really know how to connect to my community. I was going to live in a community. I decided to stay in Las Vegas. So I was going to live in a community, but I'd never really connected to it. And that was one of the things that I promised myself and my family, that wherever we settled, that's what we were going to do. So working with Goodwill of Southern Nevada has been a blessing for me because it's allowed me to both take care of my family and connect to my community.
That's excellent, man. What great advice. Yeah, I had the same conversation with a couple folks that are looking to transition or have transition. And I said, there's a for-profit business and there's nonprofit businesses. It's still a business. You're still going to get paid. It's not like you're working for free unless you're volunteering. So that's right. Great advice there. So for the audience, I think, people around the nation have seen Goodwill, the stores, and the drop-off boxes and things of that nature. But you do a lot more than that. Can you kind of talk about what Goodwill of Southern Nevada does?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first thing is to make the differentiation that the reason I say Goodwill of Southern Nevada is because each Goodwill is unique as a unique territory. They're not all geographically bound. For us, we have the 4 southernmost counties in Southern Nevada. And just to give people a frame of reference, the northern territories in the state of Nevada are actually part of the California territory. So the boundaries can be a little bit confusing. But what everybody should understand is each Goodwill territory, wherever you are, is responsible to the local community and a local board. We're not all one organization. So that's the first thing to understand.
That's huge.
The next is we represent the mission a little bit differently each place. I think, the one thing that is unique across all Goodwills is we all have the thrift stores. So absolutely, everybody recognizes that. But
Yeah.
here in Southern Nevada, our mission set is adult workforce development. And
Okay.
so our primary focus is on getting people jobs with upward mobility so they can break out of that cycle of poverty and move on to a career.
That's wonderful, man. I mean, you're building up the people so they can be self-sufficient and then contribute to the community, which,
Yeah.
it's not lost on me. You've said community a number of times, right? You grew up in a military community, you served in a military community, you're going to be part of the community in which you live at, and now you're going to build up the community by getting people a skill that they can take forward. What's like one of your biggest obstacle? What's like one or two of your biggest obstacles, as you run Goodwill of Southern Nevada?
Well, one of them you've already mentioned, and it's kind of a misunderstanding of what not-for-profit and especially a social enterprise is, which we call this business part. When you have a nonprofit that's a social enterprise, that's just a business with a social impact or a social mission.
Yeah.
And so the business aspect of it a lot of times can confuse people to make them think that we're actually a for-profit entity, and we're not.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to generate excess revenue. That excess revenue does a couple things. Number one, it pays the people that work for us, because the majority of the people that work in Goodwills are not volunteers. Part of our mission set shows up in the stores. We're a second and third chance employer at times. We employ people with disabilities. We employ people that are re-entering the community from the penal system. And so there are a number of things that go on inside the store. Also, where those profits go is into the mission set where we're helping out the rest of the community with job training and placement and supportive services. Getting people to understand that's the first one, because there are a lot of times where I'll be speaking to an audience and they're like, well, we'd like to donate to this organization because they're a nonprofit and you're for-profit. So I have to explain that. And a lot of times they have it backwards. The people they've been donating to are for-profit.
Right.
So that's thing one. Thing two is sometimes workforce development as a mission set is hard to relate in a soundbite. I have colleagues here that work at 3 Square, which is our food bank, at Catholic Charities, and they do both food and housing. And it's easier to see when I show you, hey, we're feeding people. That's not something that it's hard for people to understand. They understand that hey, there are people that are out homeless. They need homes. They have food scarcity issues, so they need food. When I say workforce development, a lot of times, if you don't have a couple of minutes to explain it, people don't quite understand where you're getting to, and they don't really understand how that impacts them positively or how they could impact their community positively by supporting us.
That's huge, man. It's funny. I've had the same conversation the last, 2 months with a couple folks, because there's that mental frame of what they believe workforce development is. Like when I talk about Home Builders Institute down here, Jacksonville chapter, what they're doing, teaching people framing, plumbing, electrical, and all that. People get that, but like you said, like that first food service industry, there's different capacities of knowledge that we just take for granted people know that they don't know, and then there's regulation and policies that require certain levels of training and such, and the fact that you can do that. I mean, it can be literally life-changing for many of those folks, because it's really get them, on a trajectory in their life where they want to be. So Rick, how can folks help out Goodwill of Southern Nevada?
Well, one of the ways that they help the most, because I talk to my colleagues all the time. I have an extremely generous community on donations. Those donations that you drop off, that stuff that you're no longer using, continue to do that, because that's the redistribution of those things, whether it's to families who need them and we're the only place that they can really shop, or others who are out there hunting for the deal. But either way, that revenue goes back into the community and helps us train people. So donate that way. The other way is, go to our website, goodwillvegas.org.
Yeah.
There are a number of ways to support our training. Sometimes we have subject matter experts come in and train people, whether it's on digital skills, sometimes on personal finance. We have people do that. That's a relatively small lane, but it's a way to help. The other is to just donate funds. You can donate your time, or you can donate your funds directly. We make that pretty simple on that website. You can donate that way. The other way, to be perfectly honest with you, if you can't do anything else, is be an ambassador of what Goodwill is actually doing. We're part of the infrastructure for the state for the local community. There are over 800 people employed, almost 900 people employed by Goodwill of Southern Nevada. And we're part of the infrastructure trying to get everybody to be able to participate in the prosperity that we're enjoying here in Southern Nevada.
Yeah.
So just be a good ambassador to what we're doing. And when we have an event, come out and support us. You know, we have everything from golf tournaments to raise money to hiring events. Well, refer your people over there when they need that help. Because the Goodwill Academy is here for everybody in Southern Nevada.
That's awesome. Rick, number one, thank you for your service to the nation. Second of all, thanks for your service to your community and beyond, because obviously people come there, but people do leave, and obviously you're literally changing lives like I mentioned earlier. So what we're going to do is take all the contact information for Goodwill of Southern Nevada and yours, put in our show notes. Highly encourage folks to see how they can contribute their time, treasure, and talent to your organization. And I love that third part you said, you know, be an ambassador, right? You know, lift up these organizations and support them in order to make our communities better. So again, thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate what you do here for veterans and for everybody. Just thank you for taking the time, and thank you for using your platform for good.
100%. And thank you very much for your service again. And I look forward to staying in contact. We'll had to have you on around the Christmas season to kind of continue to promote what all the great works you guys are doing. So, hey, folks, take a look at the show notes. Take a look at Rick and I. We'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. See what you are doing, and maybe do a little self-evaluation on how you're helping out your community. Again, time, talent, and treasure. You may not have a lot of treasure or time, but you have talents that are out there to support people. And some can just be your day-to-day life, because we all recycle or upcycle things that have been generally loved. So consider Goodwill to be that place that you take that stuff to. And workforce development, take a look at it. In our society, there's a lot of struggling people out there who just need a little bit of a hand up, not a hand out. So we'll see our next segment and live with gratitude.
When they leave us for battle, we await their return. When their embrace is gone, we imagine them with us. Some don't come back. We grieve. Some come back hurting. We help. Heroes survive. We honor them. Heroes fall. We remember them. 150,000 veterans live in Jacksonville. We serve them. We're the Military Affairs and Veterans Department, City of Jacksonville. Because of them, our light never dims.